This girl, I call her 10-10. She want 2 lines, one for her and her friend. They like my lines, so I pick up my pen. You better believe it, take it or leave it.
Alright, what's going on guys? Austin here, and today I'm going to be going over the philosophy of EQing modern pop vocals. As pretentious as that sounds, the goal of this video is to kind of help you understand the structure of the voice represented in frequencies between affecting the tone of a vocal, as well as kind of all the reflections off the walls in a room and certain things that take away from the actual performance itself. Because I find a lot of the time I'll watch a 30-minute video over mixing vocals and I'll just feel like all I did was watch a video for a preset and I was never really satisfied or given a greater understanding of the voice as a whole. Hopefully I don't fall to that same circumstance here today. Now, one of the best ways I've found to understand frequency is this free game from iZotope on EQ. It's really cool. It lets you listen to 2 sections of audio, one has been altered, and it lets you pick the frequency and how many decibels were boosted, and it's really useful for just gaining a familiarity with how frequency affects tone and training your ear. This is something I really do recommend doing. And the second thing I just want to show very briefly is this diagram over the structure of the voice. I basically have taken a bunch of buzzwords and I have assigned them to certain areas on the frequency spectrum. This is just to kind of dissect what I mean when I'm talking about boxiness or what I mean when I'm talking about the nasal tone. Now that I've kind of gone over ways you can train your ear in a bunch of different places where I would find tone and different sounds in the voice, I'm going to go ahead and start showing you my method and process when EQing. I don't want you to focus on the exact frequencies that I'm going for. What I want you to focus on is the method that I'm going through. It's going to work most of the time when you're EQing a vocal. The first thing I do on the EQ is I go ahead and set a high pass filter. What I like to do is throw the high pass filter up really drastic, play the vocal, and then pull it down until it kind of makes sense. This is going to fall between 80 hertz and 100 hertz.
Oh, I think I remember that night. You were posting pictures online of me, even through all them stages.
If you hear a drastic change in the vocal in a bad way, you need to go back, probably drop the high pass filter even lower. So yeah, that's the first thing I do. That just eliminates rumble and unnecessary stuff in the performance. After I put in the high pass filter, I like to listen to the vocal and eliminate some of the room.
Oh, hi Mark.
And what I mean by the room is I'm talking about the reflections off the walls in the area that actually make their way back into the microphone. So I'm going to go ahead and listen to the vocal and try to find those.
You were the one, yeah, you were the one I seen. This girl, I call her 10-10. She want 2 lines, one for her and her friend.
What I'm listening for right here is I hear this boxiness in the performance.
They like my line.
You can hear the environment the vocalist was recording in a little more. So once I find the room sound, I just take it down about 4 decibels, and that hopefully just tucks down the room a little bit before we actually get into our compressor. Now, this isn't going to be a video specifically on compression, but my best advice for you is that you need to slam the heck out of that Bradbury.
That means some Bradbury?
This is going to bring out all the performance in the vocal and every little piece of the voice come out, giving it a sense of a higher quality.
You were the one, yeah, you were the one I seen.
Now, the bulk of the work is really in the second EQ, and this is where I'm going to be doing tonal shaping, and this is where I'm going to be affecting the room even more, because the compressor is going to bring out some more of the room as it's shaping the vocal with the attack and the release. So again, based on the structure of the voice, like that diagram I had earlier, a lot of the boxiness is going to be in this area, in the lower mids and the mids. The trick here that really makes this an art form is you need to try to eliminate the reflections going into the microphone. This is where you're going to be kind of taking out some of the room, but at the same time, you need to retain the tone of the vocal. The voice is very predominantly mid-rangey, so as you're affecting the mid-range, you're taking out the meat of the actual vocal itself. So I'm just going to do a couple EQ cuts right now based on eliminating some of the room, and then I'm going to go back and I'm going to listen for the tone. All while I'm doing this, I'm going to be making sure my cuts or my boosts don't affect either or, and by that I mean I don't want to cut out some of the room and then affect the tone of the voice in a negative way. This will always probably be an issue with home recordings because even with acoustic treatment, the lower frequencies aren't really being absorbed. You need a lot thicker of a material to absorb the lower frequencies just because they're larger. I'm going to go ahead and start looking there first.
I think I remember that night. You were posting pictures online of me, even through all them stage heights.
I would dictate this part right here as room tone just because it doesn't necessarily feel like a harmonic of the voice and it feels like it's taking away from the performance of the vocalist. When I cut this, the position of this frequency in relation to everything else makes everything else seem higher. So it's actually bringing up the low end in certain areas. It's bringing up some of the mid-range in a good way, and it's also bringing up the high end, which is useful because that way we're not boosting so much high end and causing problems later on.
You better believe it, take it or leave it right on my hand.
There was a little heaviness loss, so that did affect the tone in a way, but at the same time I didn't do so deep of a cut, and I made sure the cue was narrow so it didn't do so much. So after I pull down the room in the vocal, I like to listen through one more time, and this is when I actually really put my focus on tone of the voice. In a perfect world, you wouldn't have to do anything, but in most cases, you're going to have to do something to the tone of the voice. What I suggest doing here is once you've gotten to this point, I would listen to a modern pop record, keep that reference vocal in mind, and it'll give you also an end goal where you want your tone to go. Tone is a very hard thing to adjust. Oftentimes, you're going to find yourself either having a thin vocal or a heavy vocal. If it's heavy, I would look somewhere around 100 to 200 hertz. If it's boxy, I'd look somewhere around from 260 to about 500. That seems to be the main area. And then if your vocalist is a little nasally, it feels like it's a present kind of boxiness, going to be somewhere around 900. And then lastly, scratchiness is the thing that I find most often. This is a very hard frequency to As you cut out 2.5K, you're also going to notice around 300 hertz kind of pops up when you do that. So you just got to kind of keep all these things in mind. That's because the whole balance of the voice is being thrown off in a different way. I've actually EQ'd this before, so I kind of noticed there was a nasally tone somewhere around 900 in the vocal.
But you already know that's why you're down for me. That's why you crowding me. Oh girl, you know I know that you so proud of me. So tell me if you about it, there's no doubt that I know.
Alright, so it ended up being off a little bit from 900 hertz. As I bypass this EQ move, I want you to kind of listen for the high end. I want you to listen to the low end, the relation of those frequencies as I bring this frequency down and how they kind of come out more without me actually boosting them.
That's why you're down for me. That's why you crowding me. Oh girl, you know I know that you so proud of me. So tell me if you about it, there's no doubt that I...
Now that's all I really do for my second EQ. I just focus on tone and I focus on the room and just kind of eliminating some of the circumstance of the recording a little more. And for the last EQ, this is where you add the secret sauce.
Dipping sauce, Szechuan sauce, Morty. That's what's gonna take us all the way to the end.
I like to boost the high end a little bit and tighten up the low end. I don't recommend using Logic or Pro Tools stock EQ for high end boosts above 10K. I feel like those EQs really have a sandpapery kind of sound in the high end. I really do think it's worth the investment to go ahead and use a different EQ for this. I recommend using something like the Pultec, the Renaissance EQ, or the Mag EQ4 for this. On this EQ, it has a very musical high end, but has a really nice way of tightening up the low end where you can boost and attenuate in the same frequency. Visually, that looks something kind of like this. I'm going to go ahead and play the vocal with and without the Pultec, and I want you to listen to the low end, listen for the tightness in it, and also focus on how the breath comes out in the high end.
Pick up my pen. You better believe it, take it or leave it right on my hand. Girl, can we just take it slow? My life's...
That's all I really had for you today. I hope all of you are doing very well. I hope this video helped you start to realize that EQ is man's best friend and also man's mortal enemy. If you have any EQ related or existential questions, feel free to leave them in the comments below. And with that, I'm going to go make good on a bet I had with my roommate. Till next time. Bye guys. Yep, that's me. You're probably